Start out with the prayer in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for our sinners, now and the hour of our death.
Amen.
Mary, seat of wisdom, pray for us.
Pray for us.
Pray for us.
Okay. Before I go into the subject at hand, I'd like to offer, do you have any questions, canonical issues, something you've heard about, something you're facing that you'd like to ask now? Because everybody usually has the same questions, and I know we would all benefit from them. Anything that is puzzling you now?
Hi, just one question. Maybe you've covered it already, Chorbishop. Getting papers ready for wedding, someone outside the parish, maybe outside the country. They claim to be baptized, cannot produce a baptism certificate, but they're positive they were baptized. What do you do to receive a document? Do you make one up? Or do you do the baptism over again, conditional baptism to produce
I wouldn't
document?
do that, Abuna. What I would do is, if they're from Lebanon, okay, where are they from?
One was from the Philippines.
The
A
Philippines.
lady from the Philippines, and she was not baptized in the Catholic Church. She was baptized in a Christian church in Philippines. She was able to produce she did get a certificate. She did not get a certificate, and she was confused about some things. So, what do you do to have a document for the file of the marriage?
In that case, I think it's more than the file. I think it's for the marriage itself. In that case, if she was in the Philippines, and she was baptized in a Christian denomination, not Catholic, I would baptize her precautionary. We can never rebaptize, but we baptize them ad castellam for precautionary purposes. And I would definitely baptize her.
Okay.
I would
we did that. Okay.
Because that could invalidate a marriage if the fact that she was not baptized, that could invalidate the marriage. Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, well, we'll just start in, and then let's see. Now we're learning about the category. We're getting vows. We think has been violated by the priest.
Yeah, that question's from me, Monsignor.
Okay, why don't you speak it out? And okay. Yes.
Yeah, so just
why don't you share it with us, Stephen? Okay.
Yeah, now that we're learning everything, what do we do if we find that we interpret something and we say, oh, gee, that doesn't seem right? Is there anything we can do? I mean, we're not prosecutors. It's not the same as the legal. I did a lot of expert legal work in my career. And is there any kind of process when someone might have violated any of these rules, or who administers, who enforces it? How does that go?
Okay. Well, what makes me think was I got a call not too long ago, maybe 4 years ago, from an associate, what do you call parochial vicar is the new title, from a parochial vicar who told me that he thinks that his pastor did an invalid funeral. Okay, because he had put the pall on the coffin. So he questioned that as to whether it was invalid. My question to him, I said, does that mean the person's not really dead? Okay. First of all, check your facts. And then once you've done it once, check them again. Okay. And what I would do is I would then speak to the person themselves. Okay. I don't think we live in a society where we go turning in names to authorities. And if it is grave enough and endangering people enough, then you have to bring it up to the bishop. Okay. Or if the person's in a parish, to the pastor. Start always at the lowest rank, and we don't use nuclear weapons on each other to start. Okay. But always be cautious in making a canonical. I use the same thing. If a person's sick, don't begin heart surgery. I'd probably take them to a professional, to a doctor.
That's very, very helpful. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay, we were talking last time about a patriarch, okay, a patriarchal church, and how the patriarch is really never to be construed or characterized as a little pope. The pope exercises legislative, judicial, and executive authority in the church, as does a bishop in the local church. You have these two poles, the bishop and the pope, by divine power exercise judicial, legislative, and executive power in the church. Okay, now, no one can remove that power from the pope. The pope, on the other hand, can modify how the bishop exercises his power. This is important to realize because in the Eastern churches, we have these synods, we have patriarchs, and they're telling a bishop what to do. Well, that's extraordinary. That's not normally the way we do things. The bishop should be able to, is able to govern on his own, except in those things that the patriarch or that the pope has said, the patriarch has the right to do this and will intervene in the affairs of the pope, of the bishop. For example, in the Latin church, the pope appoints all the bishops, more or less. There are some situations in Spain, in Switzerland, and in France, and in Germany, where the pope doesn't have the full power to appoint a pope. Sometimes he confirms an election whatsoever. In the Eastern churches, what do? We elect the bishops. We elect the patriarch. Okay? Now, I want to bring up one question. It'll just for your interest. What I'm trying to give you here is a big picture of how the church is governed. Not that, okay, you have to fill out this form and check this box and that kind of thing. I'm trying to give you a big picture of how does the church govern itself. And I want to ask you this, and our patriarch is a cardinal. Now, I teach a course also in Rome at the same time. And yesterday, the students were all questioning me about, should the patriarch be a cardinal? What are the advantages and disadvantages? Okay. We just had the Pope just announced 13 cardinals last Sunday. Yes, I think so. Should patriarchs be cardinals? Yes, no, why? What's the main function of the body of the College of Cardinals? That's the first thing to ask. Who wants to take a guess at that?
Well, one of the advantages is that he can be a pope. He can be elected.
The Pope. Yeah, they elect the Pope. They elect the Pope.
Or he could be a pope himself.
Or he could be elected himself.
Correct.
Any baptized male could be elected Pope. Now, should the cardinals be in that body? I'll put it this way. Essentially, and Pope Francis has really pointed this out more than in the past, the Pope is essentially, fundamentally, the Bishop of Rome. He has other titles, Primate of Italy. He used to be Patriarch of the West, that's no longer there. And he's pastor of the Universal Church. Okay. Now, Rome is not diminishing them. Forget about that stuff. But technically, the College of Cardinals is the body of the clergy of Rome. Every cardinal is given a church in Rome. So they create the legal fiction that he's part of the clergy, except in the case of the patriarchs. The patriarchs are not given a church. They hold on to their title as the See of Antioch or the See of Alexandria, something like that. Now, if they are electing the Bishop of Rome, should the patriarchs be involved? Don't be afraid to work at it. Don't be afraid. Father Ronald, what do you think?
Actually, I don't know a lot about this question, but I would say that the Patriarch, yeah, why not? He can involve in the election of the Pope.
Let me make it a bigger question then. Right now, we're doing things because in the past, the patriarchs were treated as archbishops. Let's say that the Patriarch of Constantinople comes into full communion with Rome, with the Pope. Should we involve the Patriarch of Constantinople, make him a cardinal, and have him elect the Bishop of Rome? And then, if he's electing the Bishop of Rome, should the Bishop of Rome help elect the Patriarch, the Bishop of Constantinople or Moscow?
No, I think there's an issue here in terms of the status of the different churches, because if the ecumenical patriarch came into communion with Rome, I don't think he would be the head of a Sui Iuris church in the same way as the Maronite church or some of these other churches in communion with Rome.
Why not?
I'm sorry?
Why not?
Well, I mean, given the discussions that have been happening most recently in Chieti, but before that in Ravenna and whatever, the way that they've been talking about papal primacy in the first millennium indicates that it would be something as a first among equals, in which the Pope exercises juridical authority in the Western Church in the same way that the Patriarch of Moscow would exercise juridical authority in the Russian Church, and the Ecumenical Patriarch in the Turkish or Greek Church.
Well, the Orthodox want to use that term, first among equals. Okay, we can't, because they're not all equal. You see, from the beginning, there was a primacy of honor with the See of Rome. Now, we have to figure out, what does that mean? I think that the Patriarch of the West would have the same relationship to the Latin Church as he would as the Patriarch of Constantinople would have with his church. But at a certain point, the Pope, we as Catholics believe that there is a supreme authority in the church, either exercised by the Pope or the College of Bishops. See, that the Orthodox are very comfortable saying the College of Bishops is the supreme authority. They're not so comfortable with saying that there's an individual supreme authority, but we have to have that. Now, how it's exercised is a different thing, but we have to have it. You see, we can't write off history. We can't say, well, that doesn't count anymore. That's where we are there. So they could be a Sui Iuris church, because that's what exactly, remember, you have a Patriarch of Alexandria, and he's like the Patriarch of Constantinople. He's head of a Sui Iuris church, which means self-governing. Right now, the Patriarch of Jerusalem and the Orthodox Patriarch of Jerusalem and the Orthodox Patriarch of Antioch are having a dispute on the establishment of a parish in Qatar. and they're saying who has jurisdiction over that place. Jerusalem claims it, Antioch claims it. This is a time where you need the Roman pontiff to make a decision. This is the way we're going to go. Okay. So first among equals, we're not there. That can't be our position. But we don't need to have the concentration, centralization of authority that we had in the past. Okay? I don't know who was speaking before. Who was
Sorry,
speaking?
that was me. Yes, Paul.
Paul, okay.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay, that's where we are there. Now, we talked about last time that the Patriarch and the Synod of Bishops are equated in Vatican II. Orientalium Ecclesiarum, number 9, speaks about the Patriarch with their synods. It doesn't say who's higher. And then in the code, you start articulating, okay, the Patriarch does this, the Synod does that. What you see quite often is an interaction between the one and the many. An interaction between the one and the many. Generally speaking, what power does the Patriarch exercise? There are 3. Take a guess. Deacon Peter.
Promulgate the law.
He exercises executive authority.
Spiritual power.
One function is promulgating the law. The Synod exercises judicial and legislative power. Okay, 3 powers. The Patriarch exercises executive. The Synod exercises judicial and legislative power. Now, one of the big things the Synod does, so we have executive, legislative, judicial, but then there's an overlap. For example, one of the big things the Synod does is elect the bishops, elect the Patriarch. In my mind, that is an executive function. Not all canon lawyers would say that, but in my mind, that's an executive function, meaning that you're filling an office. You're appointing somebody to an office, either through a vote, but you're doing that. Okay, what usually happens though in the election of a bishop is that the Synod elects the bishop. The Patriarch appoints that elected bishop to office. Okay? Now, in legislative acts, the Synod creates the law and the Patriarch promulgates the law. Now, if you go to Canon 1488, anybody have it handy?
I'm there.
Okay, Armando, Abuna.
Laws are established by promulgation.
Okay, and then if you go to Canon 112, paragraph 1.
The promulgation of laws and the publication of decisions of the Synod of Bishops of the Patriarchal Church is the competence of the Patriarch.
The Synod makes the laws, the Patriarch promulgates them. Now, with regard to judicial authority, the Synod creates a tribunal composed of 4 bishops. One who's kind of the administrator of justice. He oversees all the tribunals in the church. And then you have 3 other bishops who act as the judges. Now, they can judge, let's say, the bishop of Zlata and Antilles are having a fight about a piece of property. The synod can judge that. Let's say, though, that a bishop decides that he's going to Lebanon's really not so comfortable right now, and he's going to go to Rome and live. And he's there for 6 months, or he's in Paris, let's say Paris, for 6 months. Now, can the synod punish him? Deacon Michael?
No.
No. Why not?
Why not? Because the synod, we don't have the capacity maybe to judge this kind of issues or anything.
Yes, you're onto it. Let's go to Canon 1060, paragraph 1. Anybody have it handy?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
The Roman Pontiff himself alone has the right to judge patriarchs, bishops, and penal cases. Those who hold the highest civil office in a state, other cases which he has called to his own judgment, with the exception of bishops exercising their power within the territorial boundaries of the Patriarch Church, other bishops are to be judged in contentious cases by the tribunal designated by the Roman Pontiff with due regard for Canon Law 1066.
Thank you. We'll stop there. Paragraph 2. Paragraph 1 says that the Roman Pontiff alone can judge a bishop in a penal case. As Deacon Michael says, that bishop is subject to a penal sanction, but the Patriarch, neither the Patriarch nor the Synod can judge him. That is reserved to the Roman Pontiff, but only in a penal case. If it's not a penal case, if it's two bishops at odds with one another, they can judge that case. It would first go to that little tribunal of 4 bishops. Okay, none of the bishops who are in this case can be part of that tribunal. But if it goes first to them. Now, let's say they're not satisfied with that decision. Then the decision goes to the entire Synod of Bishops, which is the highest tribunal in the church. Okay, if you recall, when we had the impeachment issues in this country, okay, the highest court at that point was not the Supreme Court, but the Senate. And they're comparing the Synod to a Senate there. Okay? Now, let's talk about the election of the Patriarch for a few minutes, because it's quite interesting.
Bishop, there was an exception here. It says, with the exception of bishops exercising their power within the territorial boundaries of the Patriarchal Church. So that's in 2?
Oh, paragraph 2, yes.
62,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You're taking us, it's okay, it's good.
Sorry
No, you're not, don't apologize, that's great. What this means is that, let's say that Bishop Gregory and Bishop Elias are having a dispute about something. I can't even think of something, but they were having a dispute. Who owns the shrine? Or who owns the seminary building? Whatever. Who owns the retirement fund? These things can happen. Can they take their case to the Synod and the Patriarch?
No, it's not within the territory.
Not within the territory. It's only within the territory. They would take their case to Rome, specifically the Congregation for the Eastern Churches. And it might then be taken over to the Rota and something like that. And there we will spend thousands of dollars and many years, and then everybody will be dead before it's resolved. Okay.
So in case of that Lebanese bishop, I'm sorry, that left Lebanon and went to France.
Mhm.
So now what jurisdiction he's under? He's under French or Latin, Western?
No, because it's a penal law. What the patriarch would do is he would write to the Congregation for the Eastern Churches and say, we have a bishop who's missing in action or AWOL. Okay. And that it's the responsibility of the congregation to deal with it. The patriarch cannot.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so far so good. Now, let's talk about the election of the patriarch, which is found in Canon 63 to 77. I'm not going to go through the canons, but I will just describe them to you. And if you have specific questions, if one of you would like to be elected the patriarch, then I'll give you more detailed advice. Yes, Armando, you ready to be elected patriarch?
Definitely.
Excellent, 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 excellent. Then we have to tell his beatitude to be careful in eating the soup when you're around. Okay, now, what happens? The patriarch, the Synod of Bishops can elect a patriarch. They acquire the right to elect a patriarch when the office becomes vacant. Very important. Very important. You can't fill an office that's already being filled, even in the diocese, in the eparchies. If you are the pastor, the bishop cannot appoint another pastor. You have to be removed first. Okay? Now, in the case of the patriarch, how does the patriarchal see become vacant?
Death or resignation?
Death or resignation. There's one more that we don't talk about, but it happens. Removal. Removal. What happens usually is that Rome doesn't like to remove a patriarch, but they get him in a room and tell him, listen, we want your resignation. Okay. And so they have him resign just to save face. Okay. Instead of removing, but Rome could remove him. It doesn't talk about that in the code out of respect for a patriarch. Okay. Now, 3 ways that an office, a patriarchal office, can become vacant: through death, resignation, and with the resignation, it is not when the patriarch writes the letter. Who can the patriarch resign to? He can resign to the synod, and if he resigns to the synod before they can accept the resignation, the Pope has to be consulted. Or he can resign directly to the Pope himself. Okay, either way. Now, if he resigns from the office of being patriarch, he still holds the other titles. For example, if the current Maronite patriarch resigned, he would still be a cardinal. He would still be a cardinal. Okay, so yes, any question?
Just who did the Pope resign to? Pope Benedict.
The Pope declares that he's resigned. There's nobody to resign to. He just declares he resigned. Chorbishop, here's the problem with the papal resignation. A resignation canonically has to be made by a person who is in his right mind. Okay? So far, so good. The problem we're facing in today's church is that we are living so long that a pope could be afflicted with dementia or Alzheimer's. Then what do you do about a resignation? Such a person cannot resign. What they have done they took a model from Pius XII. Pius XII was the Pope during World War II. And he was always under threat of being kidnapped by Hitler. Okay, always. In fact, the instruction was everybody has to keep a bag packed. So what Pius XII did, he wrote a letter, left it in his desk drawer that said, if I am kidnapped by any authority and removed forcefully from here, or removed forcefully from here, by that very act, I resign. So what the Pope says then is he's saying that Hitler would not have the Pope, he would have an old man. Okay, in the case today, what they're doing is a Pope can say, if in the judgment of 3 medical experts, the Cardinal Secretary of State, and he could name 2 other people, I am no longer mentally or physically capable of serving as Pope, by that I resign, if all of them judge it correctly. Okay? So that's how they're getting around that today. Now, the election of the Pope. First of all, the Synod acquires the right when the see is vacant. Then the person who is senior among the choral bishops, and I don't know who the senior one is in the choral bishops in the Maronite Church today, but whoever is senior, it would have been in the past Abu Jaudi. He would have been patriarchal administrator. And it's his job to convoke all the bishops to Upkirki within 1 month. Particular law can extend it to 2 months, but no longer than that. 1 to 2 months. What you have to do is they don't want to extend it too long that real harm could come to the church if there's no leader, but they also don't want to make it so brief that bishops outside the territory can't come. Okay, so it's between 1 and 2 months. At their very first session, they can elect a president of the synod, one who presides. It can be the administrator of the patriarchal church, or it can be somebody else. They do that. Then, from that very first session, okay, I should explain something else. Everybody is required to come, except retired bishops. Retired bishops have the right to be convoked, the right to be asked, but they are not obliged to come. Everyone else, unless they present a reason that they can't come, must come. Now, at times, our church would use a Upkirki, the patriarchal residence. But let's say that Lebanon was in such turmoil that you couldn't do a synod there. Everybody couldn't get in, the airport is closed, whatever it is, you can then go to, for example, a synod could be held in Rome or Cyprus. Okay, with the consent of the permanent synod. So far, so good. Now, from the first day they meet, they have 15, it's called tempus utile, 15 business days in which to elect the Pope, Patriarch. If they don't do so in 15 days, if they can't elect anybody, the nomination goes, the right to appoint somebody goes to the Pope. 15 days is all they have. Okay, so it's different than a conclave or something like that. Only 15 days. Any questions so far?
Is that what happened in Lebanon during Ibrahim al-Hulu after Quraysh resigned or was out of office?
Well, Patriarch Quraysh he didn't resign at first. He was just sort of, they assigned him help at first because of his mental capacity. Okay. It's so delicate, but bishops have been removed. Patriarchs have been removed. Okay?
Monsignor,
Yes.
that's a good question. So retired bishops, they might not be called to the conclave, but retired bishops who are attending a synod, can they vote?
Yes. Okay. All bishops who are ordained for service in the church are convoked to the synod.
Okay.
Retired do not have to come. Now, voting power, let's say that they're going to vote on every diocese has to give the patriarch $10,000 a year for administration. Okay? In that case, the auxiliary bishops in Lebanon, the choral bishops, the retired bishops, and all the other bishops outside the territory don't have a deliberative vote, or they can limit their deliberative vote. Because, for example, why should Bishop Gregory and Bishop Elias vote for a law that they don't have to follow? Okay, or why should a choral bishop who doesn't have to pay the 10,000 get to vote? But you cannot, there's only one exception. You cannot limit the voting powers in an election. Every bishop has the right to vote. Now, one thing they can't do, let's say Bishop Gregory and Bishop Zaidan Elias are going to Lebanon. Then all of a sudden, Bishop Gregory says, I really can't go. I want you to, you vote for me. You can't do that. The bishop has one vote. He cannot delegate a vote, nor can he vote by letter. Okay. So far, so good? Now, they had 15 days. What is the vote required to be elected a patriarch? The law says, I turn off, oh, I don't know where my phone is, but the law says that it must be a 2/3 vote, a 2/3 majority, what we would call in the United States a supermajority. However, particular law of the Maronite Church could say that after 3 votes, it's a simple absolute majority. Okay, what is an absolute majority? Anybody know?
51%.
Not 51, more than 50. Just, you gotta leave it at that, more than 50. Because if you start
50 and a half.
more than 50%. It's not the most votes. Let's say they voted for 3 candidates and you have one got 6, one got 4, one got 3, or no. It has to be more than 50% of the vote. Now, let's talk about this. We're all bishops who are electing a patriarch. And we are really stuck. We can elect somebody over 50%, but we can't get a 2/3 majority. Just can't, people won't change their minds. But we don't have that particular law that says over 50% after 3 ballots. Can we pass a law that says we now have that power?
No,
Adonis says no. Why?
because there's no patriarch to
Perfect.
formulate.
You're a canon lawyer. No. No. There's no patriarch to promulgate the law, therefore it can't be law. What has to happen is either you have to wait to the end of the 15 days, you go to the Pope and say, you resolve it. And the Pope could resolve it in many, many ways. He could say, okay, you have these 2 people, he has over 50%, he's elected patriarch. Or if it's a tie, who's senior in terms of presbyteral or episcopal ordination, whatever he wants. Or he can say, no, I want this one. So the power to elect is not absolute. Now, once he is elected, he makes the, if he's a bishop, he makes profession of faith. I'll give you a little bit of gossip. There's a Jesuit in Rome who was my professor. I love him dearly. Ivan Zuzek. Okay, love him dearly. And I believe he loved me. He's dead. But canonically, I did my doctorate with another Jesuit who Zuzek didn't like. I did my license with Zuzek, then moved on because Zuzek was so busy. Well, hell hath no scorn like this was. He was always angry with me from then on. And even 20 years down the line, I translated this the first time, and I said, I wrote in it, in Latin, you don't have articles. You don't have a, the, and. You don't have it. So I said, the patriarch makes a profession of faith. And all of us here look, well, that sounds okay. He said, no. Can they profess faith in giraffes? No. They make the profession of faith, one that is approved. Okay, so the patriarch makes the profession of faith, oath of fidelity to fulfill his office, then he is enthroned. Okay? But here's the issue. And it says here, could somebody read Canon 77, paragraph 1?
The patriarch, though canonically elected, validly exercises his office only after his enthronement, by which he obtains his office with the full effects of law.
Okay. When does the Pope become Pope? Anybody know?
When he's elected.
Not when he's elected. We have to be very precise. Adonis?
He has to accept.
Precisely. When he accepts the election, then he's Pope. Because the next question they ask him, what will you be called? The patriarch, when does the bishop acquire office? Because there's an announcement in Rome, there's all these different things. When does he acquire office?
Enthronement.
Enthronement. Perfect. Chorbishop. Now, when does the patriarch acquire office?
Enthronement too.
Enthronement also. However, there's a catch.
Now, who does the enthronement of a patriarch?
Probably the senior bishop. Whatever the liturgical book would say. Whatever the liturgical book would say, and I just don't know.
Okay, so it's not really Rome. It's internal.
No, it's the bishops.
Okay.
It's the bishops. Has anybody seen one? Anybody seen the enthronement of a patriarch? Tell us about it, Shabla, if you would.
I think after the ceremony and so on, all the bishops, they hold with him the staff. They gather around him. Of course, it was the senior bishop who started the ceremony, and then all the bishops gathering with him, they would hold on to the staff of the patriarch.
Basically, which is a beautiful sign, they're giving him power to shepherd in their eparchies over the entire church. Okay? Now, but there's a catch here, gentlemen. Could somebody read Canon 77, paragraph 2? Armando, you have it.
The Patriarch is not to convoke the synodal bishop of bishops of the
No,
Patriarchal.
excuse me, I'm sorry. 76, paragraph 2.
All right. The new Patriarch must request as soon as possible ecclesiastical communion from the Roman Pontiff by means of a letter signed in his own hand.
Which means that the Patriarch, after he's enthroned or before he's enthroned, writes to the Pope and asks for ecclesiastical communion. Okay? Now, he's enthroned. He could be enthroned. And we know that enthronement requires a full office. Now, Father Armando, would you read Canon 77, paragraph 2?
The Patriarch is not to convoke the synodal of bishops of the Patriarchal Church, nor to ordain bishops before he receives ecclesiastical communion from the Roman Pontiff.
Okay. Now, in former law, the Patriarch had to request a pallium and confirmation of his election. They felt it was bad form to ask for a Patriarch to seek confirmation of an election from the Pope. However, this ecclesiastical communion arrangement is still confirmation. If it looks like a duck and sounds like a duck, it's a duck. Because my point is the Patriarch has to request ecclesiastical communion. Does that mean he wasn't in communion? And if he wasn't in communion, he shouldn't be in the synod. So he lost communion when he was elected Patriarch. Here's the problem with this arrangement. Let us say a man is elected, enthroned, and the Pope won't give him ecclesiastical communion. We have a dead duck in the water. He can't do anything. He can't convoke a synod. He can't ordain a bishop. This creates a big problem. Now, I'd like to go to major archbishops, okay, which is in Title 5 of the code.
Bishop,
Yes.
if the newly elected patriarch does not get the ecclesiastical communion from Rome, and can then the synod, the patriarch and the synod make a decision to break from Rome?
Break communion?
Yep.
Yes, they can. That will never happen in the Maronite Church. Because
Doesn't
Maronite,
happen.
no matter what, we take our pride in our communion with Rome. Okay. I always say that the Melkites with Rome, they put their hand on the wall. Maronites hug it. Okay. We'll resolve it, but we're not going to leave communion. It just doesn't happen with the Maronite Church.
I'm not suggesting it. I'm just asking.
Oh, no. I'm judging every
I'm kidding.
sincerely. They just wouldn't do it practically. Anyone could break away. Anyone could go into schism. All of us could. But that just won't happen in the Maronite Church. And it's not simply just a sentimental thing. We have a tradition of being attached in full communion with Rome. Okay. Now, could somebody, we're going to talk about major archbishops. Can anybody tell me the one church that has a major archbishop? One church that has a major archbishop.
The Orthodox Church.
No.
The Ukrainian.
We have to be Catholic.
Oh.
Syro-Malankara Church.
Syro-Malankara, Syro-Malabar, Romanian, and Ukrainian. Now, they don't call them patriarchs because they're not attached to one of the ancient sees. They are given the title of major archbishop. Although in all these churches, they use the term patriarch, they use the term Mafrian, they use the term beatitude, which is the title, how he's addressed. Could somebody read Canon 152? Anybody who has it handy.
All right. Oh, go ahead, Abuna.
Go ahead, Donis. Anybody who has it.
Okay. What is stated in common law concerning patriarchal churches or patriarchs is understood to be applicable to major archiepiscopal churches or major archiepiscops unless the common law expressly provides otherwise, or it is evident from the nature of the matter.
Now, thank you. Now, if you look, major archbishops only are treated in canons 151 through 154. Why is it so short? Because all the canons dealing with patriarchs and patriarchal churches also apply to them. There is one very big exception. And could we read Canon 153? Who has 153 handy? Father Ronald, you have it?
A major archbishop is elected according to the norm of Canon 6374.
Which is what we talked about. That's what we were dealing with in the election of a patriarch. Those are the canons dealing with the election of the patriarch. Please continue, Abuna.
After acceptance of the election, the Synod of Bishops of the major archiepiscopal church must notify the Roman Pontiff through the synodal letter about the canonical conduct of the election. However, the one who's elected in a letter signed in his own hand must petition the confirmation of his election from the Roman Pontiff.
Okay, he doesn't seek ecclesiastical communion. He seeks confirmation. And notice, he's not enthroned. He's not enthroned yet. Can we go to paragraph 3, Abuna, Ronald?
After having obtained the confirmation, the one who is elected in the presence of the Synod of the Bishops of the major archiepiscopal church must make a profession of faith and promise to carry out faithfully his office. Afterwards, his proclamation and enthronement are to be performed. If, however, the one who is elected is not yet an ordained bishop, the enthronement cannot validly be done before he receives episcopal ordination.
Precisely. Could you go to paragraph 4 now?
If, however, the confirmation is denied, a new election is to be conducted within the time established by the Roman Pontiff.
Okay, thank you. Which means that the major archbishop, before he's enthroned, must be given confirmation of the election, or he can't be enthroned. Which is, okay, if we want to have confirmation, this is the way it should be. Then if it's denied, they have to start over. If it's accepted, if it's given, he can be enthroned. What I would suggest that they do with the law about ecclesiastical communion for the patriarch would be, the patriarch is presumed to be in ecclesiastical communion. If he weren't, he wouldn't be, he would not be in that room electing a patriarch. And then if he does something wrong, then you withdraw the ecclesiastical communion and stop him from convoking a synod and ordaining bishops. Don't give the punishment until there's been a crime. But they didn't listen to me. Okay, I don't want to get into everything. We can talk about the Metropolitan. We'll start this, which is a very short topic, in our next time. But any questions about this? Any questions about what's happening in the church today that you have questions about? Or a marriage case?
Perhaps a question about our leaders are meeting this week in Rome.
Yes.
Some of the probably presumption saying that there could be a switch or a swamp, if you want to call it, of bishops from one eparchy to another. What's the tradition of that move in the church? Meaning, Bishop Tarabai decides to come to Canada, Bishop Tabit decides to go to Mexico, etc.
Well, anything outside the territory has to be Rome. It can't, the Synod can't do that. So if it's a bishop in Canada, then once you change with the Bishop of Mexico, Patriarch Sfire was much more reluctant. Patriarch, and I speak not critically, I'm just saying what they're doing. I'm not saying one was right, one was wrong. Patriarch Rai is much more open to moving bishops. Patriarch Sfire, once they were appointed, they were appointed. My position would be, I think even in the Latin Church, once a bishop is appointed somewhere, he's there. Because the tradition is they're married to their eparchy. Okay, and in a marriage, if you're married to a girl, you have to be married to her, unless you can't say, well, that's a richer girl over there and I want to be with her. No, you're married to your eparchy. I think that in the Latin Church, it would also prevent some politicking. A bishop is made the bishop here in a small diocese and he's looking to go to a larger diocese or something like that. What do you think, Monsignor?
Again, I'm with the same idea that the bishop is married to his eparchy, and because if we start doing that with one case, you have to do it with other cases. I would choose to move to the largest. I want the diocese of Beirut instead of the diocese of Baalbek, or I want the diocese of Cyprus because the weather is better than the diocese of wherever. So I think the tradition, whether in the West or in the East, says that the bishop is married to his eparchy for a term.
Yes. I agree with that. But I mean, it's not illegal. So if you ask me as a canonical, they can do it. They can do it. But theologically, yes, Subdeacon Stephen.
Yeah, I just have a general question about the correlation or comparison between the eparchy statutes and the canon law, because I was looking at both of them, and it seems some of the canon law is in our eparchal statutes and some isn't. And so I was just wondering, does one take precedent, or is there some way to sort of correlate them?
This is what is called the common law. Okay. This is then complemented by particular law, which are the statutes.
Gotcha.
Statutes can never be contradictory to this.
Okay.
The inferior legislator can't legislate in a contradictory manner to the superior.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. Yeah.
Sometimes you put the text of this in the statutes just to reinforce this is the rule, guys. Yes.
If we say that the bishop is married to his eparchy or to his,
that's the traditional theological approach. Yes.
So how come the pastor is not married to his parish?
Well, it's an exception. See, transfers and retirement are innovations of the Second Vatican Council. Now, because I'm older than Moses, I can remember Archbishop Zayek when he was in the Vatican Council. By the way, he was one of the few bishops who served as bishop, attended all the sessions of the council as a bishop. He was one of the last ones to die. He survived all that. Okay. During the council, he was very much in favor of making bishops retire. Okay? Insisting that bishops retire. And that's why you found Christus Dominus, the requirement that bishops are requested to retire. That's why you can't demand the requirement because it's not part of our tradition, but requested. However, when he started to go into his 70s, he wasn't so much in favor of that law anymore. Okay, he found the need just, okay, we shouldn't have to retire. Okay, that's, now, it's transfer of a pastor is an exception rather than the rule. The exception is it's stable, but the synod or the conference of bishops can establish an exception that allows the bishop to appoint for a certain period of time. Okay. I think in terms of the health of the parish, the health of the priest, I think around 12 years is a decent amount of time. Then it might be time for a change. Yes, Abuna.
Now, when you say transfer of a pastor is an exception,
yes,
and then what's done often, it's no longer an exception, it becomes the norm.
The norm, yes.
So how can you say it's the exception when now it's the norm?
General, no, it's not an exceptional occurrence. It's an exceptional to the general provision of the law.
So the law is being changed by practice.
It's being changed by particular law. Let me give you the canon. It's 830 or 380, one of the two. One moment.
Well, it has been changed by eparchial laws at times, right?
No, can't do it that way. Because it has to be, just one moment, I can find it if I just, 283, just one moment. The eparchial law can't change it. Okay, now, if you go to canon 284, paragraph 3, and I'll just read it because the pastor is permanent in his office. Therefore, he is not to be appointed for a determined period of time unless, then you go down to number 4, the particular law of his church, Sui Iuris, permits it.
Of the church, the Sui Iuris, not of the eparchy.
No, it has to be of the church Sui Iuris, and it's in the Maronite particular law. Because Monsignor, are they transferring pastors in Lebanon?
They are, yes. They move them between one parish and another. They don't have the term of 6 years, but they are moving them based on the needs.
Based on the needs.
Correct.
There's also two different, with the bishop, let's say the bishop of, one bishop says that I will have a priest from his village to serve in his village. Other bishops will say, no, you have to serve in a different village. That's up to the bishop to decide that.
Yes.
One last question about the synod today, what's going on. There is a talk about changing or dividing the eparchy of Tripoli into maybe Akkar and Tripoli, or even Akkar and Ehden, not even Tripoli anymore. That requires majority or 2/3, or how does it?
Majority. If you go to canon 85, paragraph 1. You want to read it, Robert? Do you have it handy?
Yes.
Okay.
For a serious reason, the Patriarch can, with the consent of the Synod of Bishops of the Patriarchal Church, and what is that? Something. Okay. And having consulted of the Apostolic See, erect provinces and eparchies, modify their boundaries, unite, divide, and suppress them, and modify their hierarchical status and transfer eparchial sees.
Okay, that's what that's all about. The Patriarch can do it with the consent of the Synod of Bishops and having consulted the Apostolic See. Yes.
Or Bishop, some of the dioceses in Lebanon, they're intermingled in each other. So the diocese of Beirut has parishes that are on the other side of the diocese of whatever, Antilles or something. Similar, like if the parish of Minneapolis belonged to Bishop Gregory and the parish of Miami belonged to Bishop Zayden. Who resolved that? It goes to the Synod too?
Yes, having consulted with the Apostolic See. The big problem is that in the Synod of 1736, before that, basically, the Patriarch was the ordinary. It was one diocese, and everybody else was an auxiliary, so to speak. And they lived with him even in the same monastery. Rome, with Assemani, wanted boundaries to be created, cathedrals to be established, and eparchies created. Okay. Well, it's only 200 years later, 300 years almost. We're going to get there. We're going to get there eventually. It's a work in progress. Okay, gentlemen. Father Ronald, could you stay on for a minute, just for a second? Okay. Everybody, thank you so much. And before I go, before we go, is this what you want? I'm going to go into marriage cases, but is this I wanted to give a broader understanding of the church. Is this helpful at all?
Good.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Court Bishop, as long as we can occasionally ask questions a little outside the theme, like I have things jump into my head. Okay.
Yes,
Great.
Jim. No, you're just holding your hand up. Okay. God bless everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. God bless you.